Hey everyone, Firegrass here, and today we're going to be talking about the Iron Will keystone being moved to the passive tree. So for those of you who aren't aware, this keystone has actually existed in PoE for quite a while. It's existed in the form of gloves and also as a support gem, although both of these options have carried a pretty significant opportunity cost, and that has kind of made this inaccessible for a lot of builds, which don't want to give up an entire glove slot, or they don't want to give up a support gem. So just as a quick recap, this is what the gloves look like. They basically take up a very important slot. They come with potentially a 30% reduced spell damage roll, which actually isn't very consequential in the grand scheme of things, but it is a minor penalty. The main downside to wearing these gloves is that they come with a massive 306 intelligence requirement, which means for pretty much every build that wants to run them, they actually have to go out of their way to give up things in order to wear these gloves, right? 300 in is something you can't reach naturally. It's something you actually have to invest into, and in a lot of cases for strength stacking builds, which is the type of build that typically uses these gloves, you get that int in the form of 2 strength/int split personality jewels that end up costing 10 exalts each. The support gem isn't much better. It comes with at most a 38% increased spell damage mod on it, which means you're getting no more multipliers, and because a lot of the builds that use these are strength stackers, they already have hundreds upon hundreds of increased spell damage, and this is an additive bonus, so quite often it's worth less than, say, 5% overall DPS, making it extremely weak as a support gem. So I think a potentially common application for the Iron Will keystone is going to be with Inquisitors that are scaling Righteous Providence. So Righteous Providence basically just means that as an Inquisitor, you're going to be scaling a bit of Strength and Int onto your gear. You typically want to find other bonuses for Strength and Int, but doing so allows you to gain some extra crit, and that synergizes really nicely with Inevitable Judgment, which is kind of important. It's worth doing a lot of the time on its own. Now, if Iron Will ends up being somewhere nearby where you're paving, you're going to get approximately 50 to 60 increased damage from taking Iron Will, which is pretty good. It would be comparable to Divine Judgment, which a lot of builds, pave out here for, and the minor nodes aren't very strong on the way to Divine Judgment, so if Divine Judgment was somewhere like where it was 1 point away from where you were pathing as a Righteous Providence Inquisitor, you'd probably take it. It would be a really easy choice in my opinion, although not a very impactful one. I do need to stress, so I have seen some people on Reddit saying this is going to be like really insane for my build. I've browsed around on PoE Ninja and also on YouTube and looked at certain strength stacking Inquisitor setups, and to be honest, there are some that are really not min-maxed at all, and in a lot of cases where the Iron Will keystone would be good for them, they're not running anything in their glove slot that would justify not using Repentance in the first place. So I was kind of scratching my head a little at that, but yeah. Okay, so there are 2 types of strength stacking builds, and they use the same uniques pretty much to achieve what they're doing, and I'm going to go through both of them right now. So if you start off with the Iron Fortress unique, and what this does is it takes the 2% increased melee fizz damage you're getting per 10 strength, and it buffs it by 50% to 3% melee fizz damage per 10 strength. You then convert that into spell damage via Repentance. So the Iron Will modifier, which is what we're discussing here, that converts the 3% per 10 strength into spell damage, and then you use the Crown of Eyes Helm in order to convert that back to a generic attack damage at a rate of 4.5% attack damage per 10 strength. And the really great thing about doing this triple item conversion is that you're getting your attack damage back as generic attack damage rather than physical attack damage. And this is really important because it means that you can start running other items such as Brutus's Lead Sprinkler and also Replica Alberon's Warpath. And so that's what spawns the 2 different builds that we're going to be looking at. Now, the first is a Brutus Lead Sprinkler build. A lot of people tend to play this with Consecrated Path. Consecrated Path just has really good scaling. Like, I'm not going to get into it because it's going to be here all day. But the bottom line is then Brutus's Lead Sprinkler gives you added fire damage to attacks per 10 strength. So the more you stack of strength, you're getting a bunch of flat fire damage, you're getting increased fire damage, and then you're also getting increased life. So you're kind of scaling your damage in 2 ways, and also your defenses in 1 way, and this is why you can basically afford to scale your strength up into the thousands, and you're going to get really good mileage out of the build. As you can see with this one, this Consecrated Path build does around 9 million DPS, and it still has around 6k life, with some moderate defenses as well. Now, the second type of build is very similar. It's just using Replica Alberon's Warpath to gain chaos damage to attacks per 80 strength, and then it's using Replica Frost Breath. And what Replica Frost Breath does is it allows the chaos damage you're dealing via your boots to then chill, and then deals double damage to those enemies. So all the extra damage you're getting, you're scaling flat chaos damage, you're scaling increased damage, and then you're scaling life, and then you're getting double damage on top of that by using this. And that's pretty much the exact same build as what we just looked at, only with, a different weapon, different set of boots, and, a lot of people tend to use this with Cyclone or Shockwave or different variants of that. Now, this all leads me to the build I want to show you guys today. I have been waiting a long time for something like this to happen because the change today made this build kind of possible. It was previously possible, but you were running only 4 million DPS on this POB, so basically this change was adding 50% more damage to the build. It was a really big deal. The build would have worked before, but it's just that this change takes it to the next step. Now, we don't know where Iron Will is going to be on the tree. I kind of suspect that they're going to put it where Elemental Equilibrium currently is, since they're planning on moving Elemental Equilibrium probably somewhere around here, which means in this case it's probably going to cost us 3 points. It may also end up somewhere around here, but I'm not too worried because no matter where it is, it's going to be fairly close and we can just adjust the tree. Now, the POB I have prepared today, it's a level 100 POB. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of min-maxed it a little bit. Like, it's not fully min-maxed or anything, with full double crops or anything, but, I'm not gonna lie. We got like a Fortify on hit, Replica Frost Breath that's corrupted. We have a +2 body armor. We have, Best in Slot Eyes of the Great Wolf with double mods. We have some strength and life split personalities. We even have a 3 passive voices, right? So this isn't going to be any kind of budget build or anything, but this is going to be the top end kind of the build. This is what you can expect from the build with a high investment, and I wanted to show it off because not a lot of builds can pull out numbers like this at this level of investment anyway, so it's definitely worth talking about, especially now that it's possible. So what this build is doing basically is it's a variant of the Replica Frost Breath build that we just saw, the one that's using the Replica Alberon's Warpath to convert your chaos damage into to convert your strength into chaos damage. The way this build is different is that it uses Battle Mage's Cry. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, let me go find it. Battle Mage's Cry, there's a wall of text here, but the bottom line is that we can use Battle Mage's Cry to abuse its buff. Now, the way its buff works is that at full value, you're getting the Crown of Eyes spell damage to attack damage conversion as a buff for your exerted attacks. Here's the kicker, right? You can use this with Cyclone, and it just applies to the entire Cyclone until you stop using it, and that counts as one exerted attack. On top of that, you can use Warcry buff effect to buff this value further. So we're kind of calculating this via the helm since you can't do it naturally through PvP, but as you can see here in the implicits, increases and reductions to spell damage also apply to attacks at 210% of their value. So we're getting quite a lot of extra mileage out of this conversion, rather than using Crown of Eyes. Now, doing it this way also allows us to use a Warlord Helm. We can use an elevated mod that gives us accuracy rating equal to our strength, which gives us the accuracy cap right off the bat, and then it gives us 1% increased crit strike chance per turn strength. Well, we're running 2.3k strength, so that is 235% increased crit strike chance, and it doesn't stop there. So we don't have a lot of room to scale attack speed since we're doing all this crazy pathing. Part of why we're doing the crazy pathing is because we get good mileage out of just taking travel nodes for the strength, since we're a strength stacker, but then we can chuck our split personalities at the end of this long widening path. So you have to understand, the character starts here, it comes all the way out here, all the way up here, and then finally at the end of this Costagle, we have our split personalities. This means we're getting a ton of strength and a ton of life off of these split personalities. Now, as you can see here, this split personality is giving me 173 strength. This one is also giving me 173 strength, and they're both giving me 392 life. It's kind of a big deal, right? These are very high value split personalities. I am keen on making a version of this build that doesn't use split personalities, but is going to require completely different pathing. One of the really cool things about not being able to scale attack speed is that we get to include Shockwave into this build, and Shockwave is kind of insane. As you can see, it has 276% attack damage scaling, which is really heavy, but it's also limited by a cooldown, not an attack rate, which means it doesn't really matter how fast or slow we attack. As long as we attack pretty much on its cooldown, we get to trigger it. And the really cool thing about combining Cyclone and Shockwave together is that we're for one, we're benefiting greatly from Pulverize. Now, as you can see here, most of the damage is coming from Shockwave, not Cyclone, so we don't really care about attack speed penalties, and Pulverize gives us 71% more melee area damage when you're using it in the Divergent version, but it comes with a 25% less attack speed penalty. Now, this is kind of, hefty, but you don't have to worry about it because Pulverize doesn't care about attack speed. So it's pretty much just a really, really big, nice support gem. It's giving us tons more damage than what we'd normally get. And then you combine Cyclone with Shockwave, you exert one attack at a time, right? So you start Cycloning, your Cyclone's exerted, all of your Shockwaves are exerted, and that only stops when you stop Cycloning. So you have to stop Cycloning and start Cycloning again 5 times within a 7-second period in order for this Warcry buff to drop off. So as long as you don't stop Cycloning 5 times in 7 seconds, which there's no reason why that would ever happen, you pretty much always have this Warcry buff, and you don't have to ever worry about like any uptime or anything with that. Now, the Iron Will Keystone being moved to the tree frees up our glove slots, which I'm going to explain the importance of this, but just to sort of show you why we couldn't run it as a support gem. We're using Life Tap here, which is really important in order to sustain the cost of our Cyclone. We are using Pulverize, which, as I explained, is a very important support gem. And then we're using Crit Damage and Crit Strikes, which are really good support gems, but only when paired together. So we don't really have a lot of room to give up a support gem here. On top of that, also, as you can see, we only hit 164 int. So freeing up this as a support gem or the glove slot is a really, really big deal for us. Now I'm going to explain why freeing up the glove slot is so crazy. So freeing up the glove slot gives us room to run Shaper's Touch. Now, this might get nerfed before the patch goes live. Shaper's Touch is going to be insane next league for a whole bunch of reasons. Int Stacker is going to be insane, Strength Stacker is going to be insane, and for totally different reasons. But for us, basically 10 Strength is giving us 1% increased energy shield. We're running 2,300 Strength here, so we're getting about 230% increased energy shield. Combined with the 24 already on the tree, that's like 250% increased energy shield. Combined with Joffrey's Sanctuary, the body armor, we're also getting 2 maximum energy shield per 5 strength. We got a lot of strength. I'm not gonna bother calculating it off the top of my head. I probably should be able to. But yeah, it's a shitload of energy shield. As you can see here, 5,000 energy shield on top of our 7,000 life. So, to recap, basically, you build strength, you get percent increased damage, you get flat chaos damage, you get life, you get flat energy shield, you get percent increased energy shield. We're scaling 5 different stats off of strength, and then on top of that, we're actually getting 7, because remember, we're also getting crit strike chance, and we're getting accuracy. This build's insane. I mean, I almost think that some aspect of it is going to get nerfed before the patch goes live, and, this is why I'm not making a fully fledged guide or anything like that at the moment. We're gonna have to wait and see how the passive changes change this build. There are a lot of changes that could potentially brick what's going on here. I don't want to speak too soon, but I still want to talk about this because, if I don't, someone else is going to make the build and call it their own first, and, I wanted to stick my name on it before other people did. Now, some of the other quality of life sort of stuff we're doing in this build, just to sort of understand that this isn't, just a nice looking amount of life and energy shield. There's more going on here. So we're spending some extra points to pay here for attack damage leached as life and mana. So this kind of takes care of our life and mana problems. And then we're also anointing corruption for the extra wither effect that we're getting from totems, but also because the chaos damage is leeching energy shield. So this is kind of like a nice amount of life and energy shield being leached. It's not an insane amount, but it's still something, right? As you can see here, the leech rate on energy shield is 500 at a time, and the leech rate on life is 1,000 per second, right? So you're getting a lot, 1.5k EHP leached per second, and with Cyclone you have no trouble hitting, your leech cap really quickly, especially in AoE situations. Now we're also in Occultist, so we're getting Occultist explosions. This is really nice as well. This is really nice, is what I meant. Now, you actually have a bit of flexibility in the way you're doing your Ascendancies. You can drop Vile Bastion and run Malediction. Now, if you're running Malediction, you probably need to, get a double corrupted set of Shapers, touch gloves. Gonna be pretty expensive. Or you may want to find some other way to apply curses. I don't know. I'm going to let you guys sort of figure out what you want to do. Malediction is nice just for the Malediction effect, which is making enemies deal 10% less damage while also taking 10% increased, but keep in mind we're running Wither with increased Wither effect, so this take 10% increased damage is additive, and it's not a more effect. I kind of like the idea of running Val Bastion because you're going to be getting, 10% of your energy shield per second while you're clearing maps. Now, this is an extra 500 energy shield per second, for a total of 1,000 energy shield per second in conjunction with 1,000 life per second. It's a lot of regen. It's 2k EHP per second. You're also getting the 40 energy shield regen per second, like, not a big deal there. You're getting stun immunity, so that's really nice. It's just a very nice quality of life sort of thing, and quality of life is really important, especially when you're going to be investing as much money as you are into this build. Now, we're also running Enduring Composure with a cast when damage taken or Mortal Core setup. As you guys know from all my other builds, this is an insane combo. It gives an insane amount of damage mitigation. It's just one of the strongest defensive layers in the entire game, and this build would be very defensive even without it. We're also running the new Determination. Now, I'm simming that via a jewel over here. So, as you can see here, I've added 2,051 armor. That's to simulate the effect of the new Determination that we're running, and as you can see here, we get 14,000 armor, so we're getting a lot of physical damage reduction, we're getting 33% block, we're getting leech, we're getting regen, like, this build has a lot going for it defensively as well. On top of that, we're going to be running the Sorrow of the Divine Flask. Now, there's a bit of an unconventional one. So the Zealot's Oath effect, for those of you who aren't aware, it just makes your life regen apply to Energy Shield instead. We don't really run life regen, so we don't really care about that downside, but what this does mean is life recovery from Flask is also applying to Energy Shield during Flask effect. We're running 2 Seething Life Flasks, which we can tap, and they're giving us, just under 2,000 total EHP every time we tap them, so we're getting like 850 life instantly, and that's also giving us Energy Shield instantly, and you can just do that with both of them, so that, like, it's tons of recovery. This build is going to have a very hard time dying unless you're, like, doing boss encounters with fatal damage, and you're intentionally taking as much damage as possible. But this is really insane. I think the only other thing to really cover in this build is the Lethal Pride. Now, I kind of made this Lethal Pride up. I've seen a Lethal Pride similar to this in a build I found on YouTube that I took some inspiration off with this build. Now, you're going to have to kind of figure out one that's giving some good strength nodes. I just kind of, I took a bunch of junk nodes and slapped a 5% strength on them. You can do whatever the hell you want with it, really. It's probably not going to make it that big of a difference either way. Even if you were to run some budget items, you were to run an inferior Lethal Pride, and some other stuff, even if you ended up with 4 million DPS here, the sheer amount of defenses that you have in this build is still going to be fine. And 4 million DPS is more than enough to kill every boss in the game. Like Cirrus on A8 has 100 million HP. So this is only that would only be like 25 seconds worth of DPS uptime, which is not a lot considering this build could easily tank, Shaper, Cirrus beams and all that sort of thing. So great build. There's probably more to min-max with it. I was very hasty in making this video. I slapped this together today and then worked on it only for like another half an hour before I decided to record it. I could probably squeeze out a couple extra million DPS from this build. There's plenty of optimizing to go. There are very, very many permutations of this build, which I haven't even bothered trying yet. This was just kind of like my first guess at what a good version of this build would look like. And, it's looking nice. This is very defensive, and it's got, a decent amount of DPS to go with it. If you like this video, give me a like, comment, and subscribe, and don't blame me when this build gets nerfed before the patch goes live.